Hi folks, it's Karen Gilbert here from Online Perfume School, and welcome to another brand showcase. And today I'm here with Jennifer Vatza. So welcome, Jennifer. And for those of you who haven't watched any of the other videos we've done, the real purpose of these brand showcases videos are to just give you a little bit of an insight into some of the students who've come through the Artisan Perfumery Mastermind, and for them to kind of share a bit about their brand, their journey on creating fragrance, and to hopefully inspire others to do it too. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me. And before we get started with the main sort of interview, as it were, can you just tell us a little bit about, say who you are, your brand, and where people can find you online?
I'm Jennifer Vatza. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the States. And about a year ago, I launched my own brand, Restorative Aromatics. And you can find me anywhere under that, on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll post the links as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, I started out as an aromatherapist, and I just love working with the scents. And last summer, I just started dabbling a little bit with creating sort of intuitive blends, not based on, oh, this is for a headache, this is for skincare. Yeah. I was just like, no, I'm going to take this, this, and this. And I found that I had this really natural sort of intuitive knack for pulling things together, not only making something that smelled amazing, but also sort of I'm like, oh, these all have similar, because I was just working with essential oils, so these all have similar properties to it. I'm like, this is for grounding and centering, this is for, that sort of thing. So, and I just kind of became like, oh, I'd like to start, dabbling a little bit in perfuming. And the internet's great, but, finding accurate information on how to do anything can be a little challenging.
Absolutely. And actually, it's really interesting you say, so you started out as an aromatherapist. So was that always your inspiration behind starting a business? Was it always with naturals and with well-being?
Yeah, it was. I have a little bit of a varied background in the creative and visual arts, academia, technology.
Yeah.
So, which actually all of it kind of comes together, because I can do all my own product photography.
Exactly.
Photography. I can build my own website because I do that for work and stuff like that. So it
always comes in handy.
Yeah, so I've had to hire a lot less people to be able to function, but also that's why I'm so busy all the time, because if I'm not creating something, I'm working on my website, or I'm managing my social media and stuff like that. So I'm at it from aromatherapy, and I would probably describe myself, I'm like a knowledge hoarder, where I just need to know everything about everything, and I just keep going further down the rabbit hole. So I've probably, in the past year and a half, I've done so many programs, and, including the perfuming one. I've done natural skincare formulation, my aromatherapy studies, incense crafting, herbalism I'm working on.
Yeah, I saw that you were doing that. Yeah.
I really like to incorporate all these different things. And you can learn a little bit from each of them and kind of carry that information over, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. So I saw I love your herbs behind you, and your perfumer's organ as well. That's a really fab backdrop. So so it's really interesting that you came from an aromatherapy background. And I think there's a lot of crossover between aromatherapy obviously and perfumery, but I know when I was in the industry, so I trained as an aromatherapist as well, and one of the things that I found when I did my aromatherapy diploma was there was not really that much of a focus on creating something that smelled amazing. So I went from the fragrance industry into aromatherapy kind of second, really, and I was like, oh, so that was really interesting that there wasn't that much of a focus. So did you find in your aromatherapy studies, because I'm sure it's changed quite a lot since I did it way back in the 90s, is there more, would you say that there's more focus now on creating beautiful blends, or is it more on the therapeutics?
I think I try to kind of incorporate both, because there are some essential oils that are just awful smelling. Valerian is great and will help you sleep, but you
don't want to put it in a perfume.
No, it's what I call the stinky feet of essential oils.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so it's sort of like having that knowledge of like, okay, I need to put some valerian in this. How do I put valerian in this and make it not noxious? So it's being able to take a blend that, you know, you're looking at something therapeutic and then make it really sort of a strong, almost like, okay, this is like wearing a perfume or a cologne or something like that.
Exactly, and actually that's quite interesting as well, because I have a lot of people who join the course who have done skincare formulation as well, and they're looking for a way to incorporate beautiful scents into their skincare products. And often, you know, their natural skincare, and you know, as I know you do that as well, and a lot of the base oils, a lot of the gorgeous, you know, therapeutic base oils that go into creating skincare products are pretty stinky as well. So yeah, so there's a lot of I suppose work that you have to do to be able to create that beautiful scent and keep that therapeutic. So yeah, that's interesting that you're doing.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of trial and error, because you're like, oh, this is really great. I made this makeup removing oil. And I'm like, oh, I'll put a little bit of violet leaf in it because that's really good for, you know, skincare and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that violet leaf is so pungent.
Yeah, so okay, so this is where the fragrance training comes in, because that's not the sort of thing that you're taught in aromatherapy, really.
No.
So that kind of brings me on to the question about, you know, obviously you joined the Artisan Perfumery Mastermind in the Facebook group and what have you. Why did you decide, oh, actually I want to join a course to learn natural perfumery, even though you had your aromatherapy kind of background still?
I love learning and experimenting, and I just, you know, I started, you know, doing the usual internet and Pinterest stuff, and I was like, kind of playing around, but I couldn't really, you know, figure. I'm like, okay, well, I want to make a perfume, but it just says use like vodka and vegetable glycerin. That doesn't work so great.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just wanted to get more of the formal training in it, you know, to kind of understand, you know, fragrance construction. And the funny thing is, you know, I ordered some books, hadn't thought about it. And then I was like, let's look for online perfume book courses and natural perfume. I found yours. And I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. And then like, I think there was a little bit of a time period before the class launched, or before the sign up launched. And I think the day I signed up for the class, your book came in the mail. And I didn't realize that I had ordered it.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. And so what was it that you found? Like, what was your, you know, if you can just sort of, just briefly, this is for people who are thinking, okay, you know, I don't know if it's for me, you know, what was the main thing that you would say that you got out of doing the course particularly?
I loved the way we think about fragrance in not just what it smells like. Like that was just really what was transformational for me, or transformative rather. And you know, thinking about what colors does this evoke, what sounds, what music, what memories, what feelings, and you know, temperature, and you know, all these things that I'd never thought of fragrance in that way before. And you know, some of the exercises we did in, you know, writing about individual, you know, like jasmine or rose or anything like that. And then also when we the homework we did, where we got the little perfume samples and kind of had to write, you know, kind of what we thought about it. And it, you know, which was just funny, because it's like writing about scent it's a really interesting talent in and of itself, because it's sort of like you can't transmit scent through the computer yet. I'm hoping someday. I know, but you know, it was just, and then I found like I was able to write about things, and you know, I think one of my favorite ones, I think it was, you know, just it's interesting what a fragrance can evoke. Like I found one of the ones, it was L'air du Temps. I'm like, that's my grandmother's perfume. You know, she passed away 2.5 years ago. I have all of her old scarves. They still smell like that. So it's like, it's just interesting, you know, to kind of how you draw those comparisons. And where that's taken me is I always have my late night inspiration, and I've sort of toying around in the very, very beginning stages of doing a series of fragrances called The Scent of Song, all based on different music pieces.
Wow, that's great. And so that's just come from that inspiration has come from learning more about communicating and writing about scent. That's yeah, that's great. And that's something that, I mean, it was so fundamental in my training way back when that you know how sometimes you think that like everybody knows that that's a thing that you do. You know, I spent so many years like writing fragrance descriptions when I was an evaluator. So we had to write like every fragrance that we sent to a client, we had to write the scent description for it. So it became kind of second nature to me. And it sort of didn't really occur to me in the early days that that wasn't something that people were familiar with. And it wasn't until I started teaching my live classes and I was really, you know, trying to get people to describe scent as part of their training. And people like, I don't even know like how would you even do that? And so, yeah, that is a fundamental part of the training and of training your nose. So this is like, for those of you watching out there thinking, you know, how can I get started with creating fragrances? The very, very first thing that I would say is, obviously we know that we've got to train our nose, but actually really what we're training is our ability to communicate what we're smelling at a fundamental level. So the more you can smell and write about what you're smelling, that is going to be a huge chunk on the learning journey. So that's just like a little extra tip for those of you out there. So I'm so glad that helped you.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're writing like, you know, product descriptions and stuff, it's sort of like, oh, this has, you know, Himalayan cedarwood vintage and, you know, Nagarmotha and whatever. Like, who knows what those smell like, you know, description.
Yeah, so it's for, you know, and, you know, it's so hard online to be able to get across, you know, the smell of a fragrance or, you know, what people are going to even a skincare product, actually, what they're going to experience when they use it. And so the better you can get at writing, and really it's about telling a story. You know, I kind of bang on about this quite a lot in the course, but, you know, having that story of your fragrance, to be able to really communicate it to the customer. And so that's lovely. That's amazing that you've got that inspiration to create some fragrances. How exciting. I can't wait to see where you go with that. So the other thing that I was going to ask you, actually, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we came on the recording, you posted recently that you had some success with Amazon selling. So this is for, you know, people out there thinking about selling their products online, and, you know, what are the different avenues. And I know you said that you sold on Etsy before, but you just sort of done some stuff with Amazon. You know, could you share a little bit about that and your experience? Because I think that would be useful for people out there.
Absolutely. I think Amazon Handmade, I mean, Etsy's great. I still have my store through there and I sell a lot, but Amazon Handmade is really amazing because not only, you don't have to go to a separate section of Amazon to get the handmade. I mean, they do have that. So like if you were searching for something, you know, it'll come up in a normal search that you do on Amazon. So your products will get seen in there with, you know, big label products. So that's really great. And their customer service and their specialists are amazing. One called me out of the blue. She's like, I'm going to help you get your Amazon, you know, ad campaign set up and stuff like that, you know, and she showed me exactly how to do that. I'm like, the next day I had like $200 worth of perfume sales or something.
That's amazing. So yeah, it's so mega inspiring for people who are just kind of thinking, oh, you know, Amazon, that's a bit too big for me. You know, I'm just a small kind of starting out business. Where do I go? So yeah, that's great. So you sell on Etsy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and so I've been following you on social media, and I've seen recently you've been doing a lot of kind of blog kind of posts as well about the industry. So I look forward to reading those because I think we're totally on the same page with that. And what I love about what you're doing is it's about educating. I mean, your love of learning obviously shows. And so for those people who are familiar with my stuff in the past, you know how passionate I am about educating your consumer. And so I love what you're doing on your Instagram, where you're talking about, you know, issues that are coming up for people, and really like educating your customers on how to choose the best product as well. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Um,
I love writing. I've blogged off and on for many years. I'm a true Gemini. I was talking to someone earlier. I'm like, if I'm not talking, I'm thinking about talking. So I write a lot to channel, you know, all of that. So, but I just find it fascinating, you know, in the conversations I have, because I'm in so many different Facebook groups for, you know, the aromatherapy, from the different programs I've done, and, you know, seeing all these different aspects and things coming into play, that, you know, it's really, there's a lot to write about, and it's a very interesting world out there, because especially with essential oils, is, you know, they've grown so much in popularity, but there's a lot of misunderstandings about it. And one of the things I also enjoyed about the course too is kind of getting a better grasp of like the IFRA regulations, and you know, looking at, you know, all the safety things that come into play when you're using naturals and synthetics as well. You know, because there's, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, birch has a great scent, but, you know, birch, you know, as far as essential oil goes, has a lot of safety concerns with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of people online, you know, you were saying before about having to sift through like this. There is so much information out there online. There absolutely is. But I don't always think that that's a good thing, because it becomes really hard to determine what's accurate and what's not. And, you know, the fragrance industry, for sure, there's always been a lot of smoke and mirrors, but, you know, the aromatherapy industry, even, you know, it's becoming much more and more popular, but there's all this stuff out there that you just don't know. Like you know, the person in the street doesn't know whether it's real or not, or whether it's true, or whether something's safe. And there is this assumption that, you know, everything is safe because it's natural. And, you know, like if anybody who's ever done an aromatherapy diploma knows, or any kind of training like that, knows that that's so not the case.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's my duty as a teacher, educator, to share that with my kind of students who are creating brands and going out there into the world. And I love that I'm getting that attracting those people who are really determined to pass that training on, because I think the only way we can educate consumers is like the brands have to be the ones who are doing the educating, and not using this kind of this scarcity, scaremongering marketing to sell a product. And I think, and I don't know what you've seen so from your perspective, but I'm really like hoping actually, but I am seeing it more, that we're sort of moving into this sort of direction of brands being a lot more upfront and educating their consumers. And saying, look, you know, I've seen a few naturals brands, or brands that have used naturals and synthetics, and saying, look, you know, we're doing this because of these reasons, and not kind of forcing the consumer to kind of be in fear and to buy their products. So I'm loving that you're doing that as well. And some of the other people that I've been speaking to in the course are all about the education. So that's amazing. Fabulous. So the final thing I really wanted to ask you actually is, what would you say is your main challenge that you've had creating fragrances for your line? So what was like, you know, and I'm sure there are many challenges in any aspect of business, but what would you say was the main thing for you that was a challenge?
It sounds silly, but like it's translating sometimes, because in aromatherapy we're kind of taught the drop by drop thing.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like 10 drops of this, 20 drops of that, 5 drops of this. So it's sort of like
the bane of my life.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm getting better at that. You know, I'm kind of like, okay, because I mean, when you're working up different materials, you know, 2 drops of vetiver has a different weight than 2 drops of lemon.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're working with really thick, you know, things like labdanum and some of those really thick absolutes and stuff like that, you can't really get a drop. It's more like just a glob.
Yeah.
So, you know, that for me has been a little bit of a challenge, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, so swapping over from the old way, you know, the method that you were taught as an aromatherapist to use a drops, okay, to weighing everything. Yeah, so those of you who've been, if anybody's been following me for a while, you know that I have this bugbear about drops versus weight. And, you know, it's traditional. I don't know why it is. I suppose it's because in aromatherapy, often you're making up a really small bottle of something for a client. So it's a bit kind of, you know, a drop of this or a drop of that. But if you are creating fragrances, especially, or anything really, I would even say if you're creating aromatherapy blends, if you want to be able to repeat it exactly, and you want to sell it and have all of that safety stuff in place, you absolutely need to move away from drops, and you need to get a scale, like a very, very small increment scale that goes down to 0.01 of a gram or higher. Lab balances are what we would normally use. That is probably one of the first things that I would say to do. And I know that there's so much stuff out there online that's a drop of this and a drop of that, but you're absolutely right, you know, like measuring accurately a drop of something like, I mean, like violet leaf. We were talking about violet leaf before, and violet leaf absolute is so potent and pungent. If you are making something in a very, very small quantity, one drop of violet leaf absolute in your blend is just gonna obliterate it. So yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And would you have any insights for, so people just kind of starting out, any insights, something that you would say, you know, like words of wisdom for someone who's right at the very beginning of their perfume making journey?
I think inspiration can come at any time. I can't tell you how many times, you know, in the middle of the night, I'm coming downstairs to get a glass of water. I pass all my oils. And I'm like, oh wait, you have this, and this. And then I've come up with some great creations that way. I'm a researcher at heart. I mean, I have a background in academia, and I find it fascinating. I just want to know everything. And, you know, I never accept that there's one, you know, okay, well, I read this one place, so therefore it's true. So I'm like, okay, looking for sort of commonalities and patterns and things like that. And I always do my research. I'm probably obnoxious about it sometimes, but but, you know, I like to know, you know, the safety regulations is important, and they vary so differently. Because I know, like in the UK and the European Union, you have much different regulations than you do in the US.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's becoming a little more cognizant of, you know, thinking if you want to sell your products internationally, being aware of those things. Like I had a blend that had Damiana in it, and I didn't know Damiana is apparently you're not able to sell it in Japan.
Yeah, there's so much stuff like that. And I think regardless of where you are in the world now, I mean, that's one of my aims, to be able to, you know, share safety, you know, like how we deal with safety in various different parts of the world, because you know, there's a lot of stuff out there that is being sold that's not like on Etsy, for example, that isn't safe, or isn't considered safe in certain countries, because there are very few regulations in certain areas. So yeah, I think as long as you like using IFRA as a guideline. And for those of you who don't know what IFRA is, you know, just you can have a look on my blog. I've got a video and a post about IFRA on there as well. But yeah, the safety aspect is something to really kind of really focus on, I guess, and just keep in mind when you're creating something. And if you don't know the answer, just there are so many resources out there where you can ask. And the inspiration thing is so funny, actually, because yeah, it always happens. It's like that 3 a.m. like you're lying in bed and then you think, oh, hang on a minute, if I put that and that might work. Yeah, so it's great that you've got your studio set up there, so you can like walk past it and have a quick blend. You know, I've often like done things like that right in the middle of the night and had to get up, and whether it's just to write it down, or, you know, I don't go as far as like blending it in the middle of the night, but definitely like writing down notes is yeah. So yeah, always keeping your eyes open for inspiration, because it could strike at any time.
Yeah, that's how I was with the scent of sound thing, where I wanted to do this, you know, line based on different, because I've been thinking of different fragrance lines. Like I wanted to do like a goddess inspired line, which is something that's kind of, you know, hanging out back there. And this just kind of was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, sure, of course I can do this.
And my mega tip for that, I don't know if I've got it here with me. I don't think I've got it to hand, but I'm one of those people, I write notes everywhere. So I've always got bits of paper. And so I decided, I think it was about 2 years ago now, to be really disciplined. And every time I had an idea, I've got a book just for ideas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Whether it's for a course, whether it's for a blog post, whether it's for a scent, whatever it is. And it just goes, it has to be written in that book. And then I can go back to it. Otherwise, you know, you end up with all of these ideas that you're juggling and you're trying to do too many things, or they just get lost in the fray. So yeah, tip, always keep your ideas in one place, so you can go back to them.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me, Jennifer. It's been really lovely to talk to you. And as I said before, I will put the links for your social media, your website underneath this video. So if anybody is watching and wants to go and follow Jennifer, it's Restorative Aromatics, but the links will be below this video anyway. And I look forward to like following you on your journey as well. That you know, I'm sure you've got loads and loads of ideas for new things in the pipeline. So watch this space. Thank you so much. And bye for now, folks.